I was 20 that summer, sent to my aunt's house for a couple of weeks while my parents took what they called a much-needed break from everything, which mostly meant they wanted the house to themselves. My cousins Kayla and Megan were a few years older, home from graduate programs and glowing with the kind of confidence that made them seem permanently in motion. They were sharp, stylish, self-assured, exactly the sort of people who looked like they had been adults forever, while I still felt like I was trying on the idea. The rain had pinned all three of us inside for the third straight day, turning the windows into gray, humming sheets, and filling the house with a muted, endless afternoon. We sprawled across the upstairs den, legs draped over armrests and throw pillows, the whole space wrapped in that drifting quiet that comes from long boredom and too much weather. Kayla sat up suddenly, eyes brightening with mischief, the kind that made you feel like you were about to be drafted into something. "You're bored," she declared. "We're bored, so let's do a makeover." I snorted, assuming she was talking about herself or Megan. But then Kayla angled a grin at me, and I felt the trap close as gently and inevitably as a hand resting on a shoulder. "On you," she added. "No," I said immediately, heat rising in my face before I could stop it. "Absolutely not." "Oh, come on," Megan said, her voice slipping into that persuasive warmth she used when she knew she was going to win. "We used to do this to each other all the time. It's fun. You'll be fine." They both looked at me like the outcome was already predetermined. I tried to find a good excuse. Not even a great one, just something solid enough to stand on. But all I managed was, "I'm a guy." Kayla smirked, brushing off the objection without even needing to answer it. "And you have a better jawline than half the women I know. Trust me, this will be great." It should have been the end of the discussion, but something in me hesitated, some small flicker of curiosity I didn't want to acknowledge. The kind of nervous, hovering interest I used to feel when drifting a little too slowly past the women's clothing section in stores, pretending I was only looking for books or electronics on the other side. "You don't have to tell anyone," Megan added, softer now, like she could see the shift in my expression. "Just for fun, no pictures unless you say yes." That was the moment something in me tilted. "Fine," I muttered, trying to look indifferent despite the pulse tapping in my throat. "Whatever." Kayla clapped once, bright and triumphant. "Perfect upstairs, my closet." Their room smelled faintly of lavender lotion and something floral I couldn't place. Clothes hung from chairbacks in loose piles. A curling iron lay unplugged on the desk. Makeup spilled across the bedspread like a painter's palette. Abandoned mid-project. Kayla dug into her closet with the enthusiasm of someone preparing for a transformation show, while Megan guided me to sit on the edge of the bed, already holding a soft blue dress against my chest as though testing color theory. "What's your size?" she asked, squinting thoughtfully. "I have no idea." They laughed, not at me, but at the challenge, before launching into a lively debate about lengths, fits, and silhouettes, talking over me like I was their newest creative project. I sat there with my eyes closed, as instructed, while they shuffled fabrics, rejecting some, approving others. When they finally told me to look, Kayla held up a floral skirt and a fitted white top with the satisfied air of someone who had finally found the missing piece of a puzzle. "Try these," she said. I hesitated for a beat, but Megan had already turned her back to give me privacy. My fingers fumbled slightly as I stepped into the skirt, the fabric sliding up my legs with a delicacy that made something twist low in my stomach. The top hugged close when I pulled it on, shaping itself around me in a way no clothing I owned ever did. When I looked in the mirror, I froze. It wasn't a joke. It was an option. Kayla circled me slowly. "Not bad," she murmured as though evaluating a sculpture, "but we can absolutely do better." They sat me at the vanity. The warm light smoothed everything it touched. The mirror held a version of me that already felt strangely in between. Kayla pinned back my hair with casual expertise, while Megan sorted through brushes and palettes with the precision of an artist. The foundation brush gliding across my skin felt cool and deliberate. Kayla's hands moved with practiced ease, shaping and softening, her concentration so sharp it made me sit a little straighter. She leaned in with mascara next, and her voice dropped into a tone almost admiring. "You have great eyelashes. Seriously, this is unfair." My cheeks warmed. "Thanks," I said, unsure of how else to answer. Megan added blush, then contour, tapping gently at my cheekbones. "Smile," she said. I did, awkwardly, and she grinned. "See? Already so much better." Kayla steadied my chin for the lip gloss. "Don't press your lips together until I tell you." The gloss smelled faintly of vanilla. Her focus was intense enough that I felt something tighten in my chest, bracing and vulnerable all at once. When they stepped back, the person staring at me from the mirror felt impossibly familiar and completely new. Softer, brighter. A version of me that held her shoulders differently, as though the world might look back at her in a different way. Megan put her hands on her hips. "Wow, you're a way better girl than Guy." It was meant to tease, but my stomach fluttered with something dangerously close to agreement. "Guess I'm a natural," I whispered. Kayla tossed me a thin, soft cardigan. "Put this on, trust me." When I slipped it over my arms, the whole outfit seemed to settle around me like it had been waiting. And for the first time in a long time, something in me felt like it clicked into place. When everything finally wound down and the spell of the moment loosened enough for real time to slip back in, they let me change out of the outfit. I peeled away the skirt and the soft cardigan like I was removing a second skin that had strangely begun to feel more natural than the one beneath it. When I pulled my jeans back on, the denim felt heavier, coarser, somehow noisier than it ever had before. My hoodie settled around my shoulders with all the familiar weight I'd worn for years, but instead of grounding me, it felt like slipping into a version of myself whose seams no longer aligned. I glanced at the mirror and saw the same face everyone knew, my face. But the memory of the one from minutes ago lingered like an afterimage burned softly into the back of my mind. The room seemed quieter now, as if the three of us were holding something fragile between us without speaking its name. Kayla and Megan gathered clothes and brushes with a practiced nonchalance that probably would have fooled anyone else, but I could feel the subtle shift in the air, the unspoken "I see you" between their movements. Before I reached the door, Megan stopped me with a gentle touch to my hand and pressed something smooth and small into my palm, a tube of lip gloss. "Keep it," she said, as casually as if she were handing me gum. "You never know." I nodded, unable to trust my voice. The vanilla scent clung faintly to the cap, soft and sweet and unmistakable, and it felt like being handed a secret I hadn't realized I wanted to keep. That night, the house settled into its usual quiet, the low hum of the refrigerator downstairs, the odd creaks of old pipes, the patter of leftover rain tapping against the windows like a fading memory. I lay in the guest room bed with the covers pulled loosely around me, staring at the faint glow of the streetlight filtering through the curtains. The lip gloss sat in my hand at first, cool and small and impossibly important, until finally I set it on the pillow beside me. I kept rolling onto my side to look at it again, as though it might shift or speak or somehow reveal its purpose if I stared long enough. My mind kept replaying the way the skirt had moved when I walked across the room, how the fabric whispered around my legs in a rhythm I hadn't known could feel so strangely right. The cardigan had been even worse, or better, because its softness had settled over my shoulders like a promise, like an invitation I didn't know I'd been waiting for, and the face in the mirror, that softened, brighter version of me, the one who held herself differently and met her own gaze with something startlingly close to recognition. That image stayed behind my eyelids every time I blinked. I kept telling myself it was just a game, just a bored afternoon with my cousins, nothing more complicated than that. But every time I repeated it, the words felt thinner, like paper that had been folded too many times. There had been a moment, more than a moment, when I'd felt something open, like a door I'd never seen before pushing itself into existence, and I couldn't unfeel it. I couldn't pretend it was meaningless. I thought about Kayla circling me with that critical artist's eye, her grin softening into something almost approving. I thought about Megan's steady hands brushing color across my cheeks, guiding my smile with a quiet kind of assurance that felt gentler than anything I'd expected. But mostly, I thought about the girl in the mirror, the way her eyes had widened at her own reflection, the way her shoulders had settled into a posture that wasn't mine, yet somehow I wondered who she was, if she had a name, if she existed only for those brief minutes, or if she had been waiting for years, tucked somewhere beneath all the versions of me I had been taught to wear. I reached for the lip gloss again, turning it slowly between my fingers, tracing the curve of the cap with my thumb. The scent of vanilla was faint but persistent, like the memory of someone whispering in the next room. I uncapped it once, just enough to see the glistening color at the top, and felt my chest tighten with an emotion I didn't have the courage to name. I didn't put it on. Some part of me wasn't ready, or was too ready, or couldn't decide which was more terrifying, but I didn't put it away either. I left it next to me on the pillow like a companion, or a reminder, or maybe a challenge. I lay back and stared at the ceiling, listening to the last remnants of rain sliding down the gutters outside. The house was quiet, but my thoughts shifted in restless, looping patterns, slipping back again and again to the skirt, the cardigan, the girl in the mirror. I didn't know what any of it meant, not really. I didn't know if it was just curiosity or something deeper, something with roots I hadn't noticed before. But I knew, without question, that it wasn't nothing. It wasn't an afternoon I would forget. It wasn't a version of myself I could simply fold away and pretend had never existed. I felt it like a warm pulse under my ribs, steady and insistent. A faint echo of the moment when everything had clicked together just long enough to make sense. For the first time in years, maybe ever, I felt like there was a part of me I hadn't met yet. Someone who had been waiting behind closed doors and quiet doubts and fleeting glances at things I pretended not to notice. I rolled onto my side, pulling the covers up to my chest, and let my fingers rest lightly on the lip gloss, one more time before closing my eyes. The thought returned, soft and certain, threading itself through me in a way that felt less like a realization and more like a memory finally surfacing. It wouldn't be the last time. I didn't know when or how or what would happen next, but the knowing sat in my chest like a steady flame, small but impossible to ignore. The rain finally stopped outside, leaving the room in a hush so complete it felt like the world was holding its breath with me. Somewhere in that quiet, with the vanilla scent lingering between my fingers, I understood that something had shifted, something had begun, and it wasn't going back.